Over the last couple of decades, I've had the opportunity to meet some amazing people. One of my favorites is our guest today. He is Lieutenant Colonel Tommy Waller from the Marine Corps Reserves. He's a phenomenal individual. He right now is the Director of Infrastructure Security at the Center for Security Policy. Tremendous man. He's got a wealth of knowledge. We've talked to him before about the grid. We're going to talk today about food security. So I welcome Tommy Waller to the Economic War Room.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin, for having me here. Yeah, so the Center for Security Policy's, of course, been interested in infrastructure security since the inception, and you and I both have worked together on a number of things, including the security of the electric grid. Right. But I'll tell you, just in the last 6 months, it's become clear that we need to do a deep dive on food security. And so one of the things that we're producing right now is a report titled Food Security is National Security.
Wait, stop a second. Food security is national security.
Absolutely.
I agree with you 100%. And we had Ross Kennedy in the Economic War Room a couple of weeks ago. But most people in Washington don't understand that. We take our food supply for granted. Tell me, what are you finding?
Sure, it's actually very similar to, when we talk about the electric grid, we take for granted the fact that we can flip the switch on and the lights come on, right? And we forget that there's this huge system that makes that possible. It's very similar with respect to food. 2% of our population actually farms, right? And is producing the food that 98% of our population consumes.
And depends on.
Absolutely.
It's a life or death issue.
Life or death, survival. And so often we take for granted both the people who do that food production and all of the complex systems that undergird it, from its production to its transportation to its distribution to our consumption. And it's a massively complicated, it's a blessing that we have this system. Absolutely. But there's a lot of vulnerabilities to it.
Yeah, well, and as people are finding out when they look for baby formula and it's not on the shelves, you can have one glitch in the supply chain and it means that there's not food available.
That's it. And right now there's a huge glitch when you look at Russia invading one of the world's largest bread baskets of Ukraine. Just recently, in fact, it's obvious that Vladimir Putin is using food as a weapon, having recently destroyed the third largest grain terminal, a place where grain is stored and where it's exported via ship in Ukraine. That makes it clear that he's going to be holding hostage a resource that people need for their survival for the rest of the world. And that's something that we have to take notice of.
Yeah, we have, I did a study of this for the Pentagon. The reality of it is that the number one thing you can do to disrupt a society is remove food. That's where we had the Arab Spring, came from food shortages. And if you want to cause people to go nuts and go crazy, take away food for their family, and that will cause anyone to go do whatever necessary to get that food.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, Henry Kissinger said, you control the food, you control the people. You control the energy, you control nations, you control money, you control the world. And so what you're going to see, the downstream effects of what's happening in Ukraine are most immediately going to hurt the Middle East, North Africa, and Europe, and especially those countries that they depend on food imports because they can't produce it themselves. I mean, that's where we really need to have a lot of prayer, as much support as we can to get ahead of that famine. But the second and third order effects of this kinetic warfare against food infrastructure globally is going to affect the world. Because as you mentioned, when you have scarcity of food, you have conflict, you have migration. And so Europe's going to feel it first, but we're not going to escape that ourselves.
Yeah, no, Ross made that point. We may feel it first in higher prices. Hopefully we never feel it where people are starving to death. But this is a global issue, and it's a part of an ongoing global economic war that we're facing, and Putin knows it's a weapon.